Hi everyone, you're tuning in at X-Raised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. I'm your host Miles, and I hope you stick with me today as we sit down once again with a bright mind in business, innovation, and finance to extract the wisdom that makes success inevitable. We're about to shatter some myths about financial independence and the ever so popular FIRE movement, or the financial independence retire early. Our guest is someone who has redefined what financial freedom truly means. He's a board director, career transformation expert, and executive leadership coach with a wealth of experience in C suite leadership. He's built a life that isn't dictated by a 9 to 5, but rather by purpose, freedom, and strategic wealth building. So, if you've ever wondered why wealthy don't necessarily buy into the FIRE philosophy, this episode is for you. So, I'd like to welcome back to our virtual stage the founder and coach at the Institute for Greatness, Anthony Che. Hey, Anthony.
Hey, Miles.
I'm very glad to have you back here on our show. And this time we're going to talk about something that I haven't really covered yet here on X-Raised, fire.
Wow. I'm very honored to be the first one.
Yes, and I'm so excited. So, financial independence means different things to different people. For some, it's retiring early. For others, it's having the ability to make choices without financial stress. So, from your perspective, Anthony, what does true financial freedom look like, and how should people define it in a way that aligns with their personal values?
Yeah, you're right. The definition is subjective, different for every person. For me, it's actually pretty simple. The first one is to have the ability to say no to people at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Second would be to have full control of your time. Unfortunately, that doesn't work with your kids and wife because they always have control over my time. But I think once you have those two things, then that allows you to allocate your limited time and energy to do things that are according to your values and life purpose. So that is my definition. I think it's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
And related to part two of your question in terms of how do we align our values with that, right? And I have clients that I coach them on this topic. And I just ask a few simple questions. First question could be, how is money supposed to serve you? For me, my answer is money buys me freedom to fully control my schedule as I see fit. Okay. Another question I would ask is, what is your relationship with money? Are you a hoarder, a saver, a spender? Like, for example, if you won the jackpot tomorrow, what are the first three things you would do with it? Right. So, like, in a sense, it's what is your love language with money? And then another question I would ask would be, go find a childhood photo of yourself and look at a photo of this happy child and ask, how did money serve this child? And for me, is like the way I answer these questions would be like, well, I'm a saver, so that I acknowledge. A lot of that is due to my upbringing because my parents and the generations before me, they were very poor and they were always savers. So I saw that growing up, and I talked about that in my book, Breaking the Glass Ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was a kid, money didn't really come into play at all. Like, I was a pretty happy child. I was happy just to go on any trip.
Uh-huh.
Getting on a plane, any kind of plane, economy class was like it's like totally like privilege and luxury, and like just going on a trip to stay at a motel or something is something I'm very like thankful for, right? And so like these are the things kind of frame my value of money growing up. Therefore, money to me is a necessity, which is a necessity for everybody, but it's more like food and water, where it's a need versus a want. As in, once you have consumed enough food, the more food you consume does not actually give you pleasure. It actually gives you more pain, right? And so there's
Mm-hmm.
always a limit to how much you can consume. And so to me, it's money is the same. Like, I just need I just need it to live a certain lifestyle, and that's it. Yeah, it's kind of like money is a tool that can get me to freedom, but once I'm free, I can't feel any more free. So that's kind of how I think about money.
Uh-huh. Well, so it's less about escaping work and more about the ability to say no when something doesn't really align with your values or purpose. And I have to agree with you, Anthony. Financial freedom is not really just about money. It's about time, being in control, and how you allocate your energy to what truly matters. And I like your analogy of money as if it's food and water. There's always a limit to how much you can consume indeed. But I'm sure that takes so much strategy, which brings me to my next question. Your journey to financial independence wasn't just about saving money, but it was about shifting your mindset. What were the pivotal steps or strategies that help you reach this level of freedom? And how can others follow a similar path? How can we follow a similar path without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, that's a very good question, a very good point, starting out with mindset, because in life, I think many things, in order to achieve something, is really all about having the right mindset up front. And so I think it's important to also understand the difference between being wealthy and rich, because a lot of people kind of intermix them, but I think they're actually quite different. So, like to me, having a wealthy mindset means continuous learning and investing, especially in myself, right? Like constant learning. You need to invest in yourself physically, mentally, everything, right? And believe that money should work for us 24/7. Somebody who is rich may have a lot of money, but that could just be a one off. Like somebody who just won a lottery, and we've heard a lot of these like curses, right? It's actually worse off somebody who wins a lottery later in life because they don't have the right mindset to manage a lot of money. So it's important to have those two distinctions. So for me, is I would definitely love to be wealthy than rich. And it doesn't mean that you need to have a lot of money to be wealthy. So like a lot of it, it's thinking about what is your return on time and return on capital. And that's how the wealthy think, right? Because when they think about businesses, when they think about investing, it's all about what is the return on capital.
Mhm.
And it is that a lot of these people who are wealthy is that obsession with this concept that got them to where they are to build successful businesses. The other thing for me about mindset is I personally don't find much satisfaction in material things because I treat them as needs. And also, I feel that most material things depreciate, as in, like, the value only goes down after I spend money on it. And sometimes I implant in my mind, like, okay, I'm actually putting money in the trash can because I know eventually that's going to go to waste or give it away or it's worth nothing. And then the other point for me in terms of mindset is that I treat work as an avenue to learn and that people are paying me to learn. So that has actually been ingrained in me since my teenage years versus I work because I need money, right? So like they're very different. So for me, it's I always love to work, not to get paid, but I love to work. I get to learn, and people pay me
Learn.
to learn better than going to school where I have to
Mhm.
pay school a lot of money to learn, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit about the mindset. And then you talked about like be there's a process and being disciplined and having the right habits are also very important because once you have the mindset, you need to translate that into action. So
Uh-huh.
like some very basic examples would be like for my kids, for example, like when we go out with my kids always bring water bottle and then we would refill their water bottle with like a drinking fountain, right? Like some people could be like, oh, just go
Yeah,
buy,
I do that too.
uh, yeah. So people, oh, just buy the convenience store or like just buy this and buy that. And again, this is how I was raised growing up, right? Like these things, we just think like, okay, it's not a lot of money, but again, it's a discipline and habit, right? Or
Yeah.
like, yeah, right. Like on your way home, you could be like, I'm thirsty. Let me just grab something like $4 or whatever, right? But you could have actually just gone it from home in like 5 minutes. Uh,
Right.
and then things like not paying off your credit card, incurring interest. I really think that is a vicious cycle and it's treadmill to hell because yeah, once you get into that pattern, it's very you're kind of stuck. And then the last thing is in terms of discipline and habit is that a lot of people save and then invest. And ironically, I don't actually do that because I actually think investment is a necessity just like any other expense. Like for me, is like food and rent are necessary expenses, just as investing to me is a necessary expense. So I actually don't have much savings because I've already invested most of it before it gets to savings. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's a discipline and mindset thing. And so I think some of the advice to younger people is that I always encourage them to take more risk when you're young. Like, for example, if you lose 1 year of salary in an investment, I'll say, well, you know what? Treat it like going to graduate school, because it's better to lose $10,000 when you're young, because then you will end up making $100,000 in the future, or you will avoid losing $100,000 in the future. The other thing is also, we shouldn't come up with excuses or like, oh, I can't do that because like fire or financial independence only applies to high income earners, or like, oh, I don't know how to invest, right? So these are what I call like excuses, right? Because, for example, in the last episode, I just taught everybody how to buy a business, and that anybody can buy a business, right? Or like anybody can buy the index. So again, like anybody can do it, just that you need to translate into action. Because you asked me the question earlier, like, what did I do myself in terms of my belief and pursuit of financial independence?
Yeah.
Is that like, I moved to Asia about 20 years ago, right after SARS in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still very young, early in my career. And like the first month I arrived in Asia, I bought a property, very small one. But I just felt like, okay, I'm going to park some money and invest into something that has the chance to appreciate. And then every time I get a bonus, I don't buy fancy cars or fancy watches or anything. I would invest in something, or like I'll buy another property. So that's what I will keep doing. And that actually gave me the opportunities to launch my hedge fund at 30 years old, where I didn't really have much money still. But that was kind of my first portfolio of capital to start something, right? And so I think the main pillar is that you need to have a portfolio that can compound and still be able to grow after the gains are more than enough to cover your expenses.
Uh-huh. Right. So for you, being wealthy is having a healthy mindset by continuously learning and not necessarily having these material things that are not really essential for us. And you're right, Anthony. Wealth is also about planting seeds that keep growing, as you mentioned, through investment. And let's be real, anyone can really get money, but not everyone can keep money. I don't know if I'm making sense, but the ones that you mentioned, the discipline, the habits, the investment mindset, these are the things that separate those who thrive from those who just survive. And
Mm.
leads us perfectly into the next discussion, Anthony. A lot of people assume that financial independence means you stop working entirely. And but I know you've taken a different approach. I see you smile. I was smirking. The portfolio career, where you remain active in multiple fields, which I'm really interested about. So what inspired that choice, and how has financial freedom empowered you to refine your career rather than, retire from it?
Mm. In my 20s and 30s, I used to be a strong believer of fire, right? Like, oh, you are independent, financially independent, just travel the world, you can sleep in, read books, focus on other hobbies, do this and do that. So I was a strong believer. But then I ask myself now, 20 some years later, and I'm like, well, it's because I feel like I haven't built anything at the time. And now that over time I've built businesses, and I feel that I'm starting to cement a purpose in life.
Uh-huh.
And so my perspective is really now like having scaled businesses and like build things with limited time, is how do I scale myself with limited time, right?
Uh-huh.
So like instead of working in a business, I need to work on a business. Just how do I work on myself, right? And so first of all is, how do you really define retirement? Because the traditional way is that most people had one full-time job, fixed time, and then once income, right? And then once people leave that, or they retire from it, or they reach their retirement age, they call that, oh, retirement. But of
Retirement.
course, I think this day and age things have changed a lot. And if you look at successful athletes, for example, or like Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan, Roger Federer, who retired from sport by
Yeah.
in their 40s, right?
Mhm.
Did they really retire? I mean, they retired from the sport, but they actually moved on to a new chapter of life to do something else, right? They're all like building
Mhm.
businesses and doing a lot of different things.
Mhm.
So actually, it's funny. Like most of their core wealth is generated outside of their main sports career.
Yeah, like
So like,
royalty.
yeah, yeah. So like, a lot of what we deem as career and retirement actually changed a lot. And so again, is for me is financial independence really means that I can do what I love on my own terms, and that I don't really have to prove to anyone anymore,
I
right?
agree. I agree.
Yeah. And so like for me, as you said, mentioned the word like portfolio career again is something that I didn't even know existed. It just kind of things evolved into that.
Mm-hmm.
But like for me, is I actually become super productive doing multiple things because now that I can actually once I can control my schedule, I have like no downtime, but I can just be very targeted and super productive, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like total of number of hours worked a day, it's definitely I'm definitely just as hardworking as before when I had full-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The only difference is now I could segment it differently. Like, oh, I may want to work late at night or early in the morning, but I will like block out certain time for my kids or block a certain time to do other things. Right.
Yeah, you're in
Uh,
total control of your time.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So no time is really wasted. And so I think about it also as like, investment portfolio, right? Like most people, they don't invest in one stock as their investment portfolio, right? People also diversify.
Yeah.
Just as for career, somehow I just diversified into different roles to call it my portfolio career, right? So, like as you said, like sitting on boards as a director,
Mm-hmm.
being a coach, being an investor. The ironic thing is, I do them because I choose to. I don't think about them as paying bills. And then I realized that I can actually go all in and be better at doing these things when I don't have to think about money first, right? Versus like I have to do this because I need to make money. So I think that's another kind of outcome of being financially independent is actually you enjoy your work more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, from these type of roles, they're all synergistic and I get to meet very interesting people. I get to grow my network. I get to learn from very talented people. And it's a good way for me to really think like, hey, I can continue to open new doors and write more exciting chapters to my story and build
Mm-hmm.
a legacy, right? So yeah, I think at the end of the day is if you ask me, am I going to retire? I said, no, I don't think I'll ever retire.
Yeah. So in a way, Anthony, the real flex isn't escaping work. It's designing work that aligns who you are. It's like you've taken that same approach and applied it to financial freedom, like your core wealth from actually building businesses, investing, and mentoring. I mean, the things that you're really passionate about. And I really like how you set your response to my previous question. And you're right, retirement has a really various definition. In fact, in one of the books that I recently read, it says there that in Japanese, they don't have any exact equivalent or exact translation of the word retirement as it is in English. So it's interesting. And now, off to the big question. There is a growing movement of people striving for fire, but the ultra wealthy don't really seem to, subscribe to this mindset. Why is that, Anthony? I mean, what do they understand about wealth that most people don't?
Yeah, well, it goes back to the original definition, right? And the mindset of the wealthy versus the rich. The wealthy
Uh-huh.
are there to learn, to achieve, to make a difference, and to serve a purpose. And so like again, if you look at the super wealthy guys like you know Elon Musk, Bezos, Jason
Uh-huh.
Wong, like why do they work so hard? Like clearly they can retire like many times over many lives, right? And
Uh-huh.
they don't need to work, but they're all working so hard. So you have to ask yourself, like, why is that the case? And because the guys who are truly wealthy, they always feel like they have this unwavering, lifelong mission to achieve something, to learn and be challenged. And they really want to change the world, and then also to leave a legacy. So this is kind of how they think about life, right? And so fire is not for everybody. And I think a lot of people would just think about really like, if you think about, okay, do I really want to say, oh, I just want to stop working at this age and then just travel, go to the gym, go walk my dog for like the next 30, 40 years of my life?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you, I mean, at the end, it's really like, as I said in one of the episodes before, like life is like writing a story about, writing a book about your life, right? And it's kind of like a movie, right? It's like, this is a movie of myself. So what kind of movie do you want to create about yourself, or what kind of book do you want to write about yourself, right? And as long as you're happy with the chapters and the content of the book, I think that's all that matters, right? So if that's what you want, like just to truly retire and be happy reading that book and letting other people read that book, that's totally fine.
A legacy.
Yeah. Some people don't care as much about legacies. Like everyone's different. But I think it's about, as I said, it's just think about people just made a video or a movie about your life. Are you happy with that movie?
Yes. You're right, Anthony. Actually, it's fascinating the way you put it. Wealthy is about the drive to create, build, and contribute. The wealthy have more money than they could ever spend, but they keep going because their work is their mission. So maybe the real question here would be, what kind of life do I want to build? And that leads us to something you've been really actively working on at the Institute for Greatness. You help people align their careers with their values and unlock their full potential. So how does achieving financial independence play into this? And what advice would you give to someone who's just getting started on that journey?
Well, firstly, it's important to know that you don't need to be financially independent to have a career that aligns with your values. Like you don't always have to think about like, I'm only doing this purely for money. Like you can go way beyond that, right? I mean, of course, if you you're not financially independent, then you need to really calibrate and put more effort into kind of building a mindset, right? I mean, to me, like the analogy would be like, it's like taking my tired and young kids to a meal. Because number one, they already are picky eaters. And then if they're tired, then you can give them all these options. Like there's a mall with so many restaurants, 10 restaurants. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. Because like I need certain things. I don't eat spicy. I don't need it. So like, yeah, definitely it's tougher to fulfill that, right? So when you're not financially independent, it's like, yes, there are a lot more options out there for career, but you might still have only a selection because you still have to meet your basic needs, right? But it doesn't mean you cannot find one that ultimately aligns with your values. So what I learned about money, or what I learned is that the more money, as I said, like doesn't give you more happiness, rather it actually gives you more stress. It just makes you want to run faster on this treadmill and longer. And so I think there are a few steps to actually think about money and a career that aligns with that, right? So like, I would just say like there are many people who are financially independent, right? And just study them. What is their path that they took? And if you could be like one of them, who would it be? So look at the notables, like Warren Buffett versus flashy celebrities. Or it could also be, people like Keanu Reeves, who's known to be very down to earth, super wealthy person, right? We said Warren Buffett, he's super, super wealthy, but very, very down to earth, right? So so study those and who do you want to be? And then like, what does financial independence mean to you? From a score of 1 to 10, where are you now, right? So like give yourself a score and how can you get closer to a 10 if you're not at a 10 right now? So that's another step. And then one of the other things you could do is, ask yourself, are you hanging out with people who share similar values as you? So for me, it's like, people like to spend a lot of money on like wine, dine, eating at Michelin stars, etc. Right? Like for me, is like I just like to sit under a tree and read a book and just like lie down type of thing, right? So like, it doesn't matter how much money I have or how little money I have. That's what I like to do, and that's what I do, right? So like, I just spend more time with those people than going out to all these like nice meals and things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then another question to ask yourself is if you truly believe your job doesn't get you to financial independence now, then when? When will it get you there? But if the answer is, I don't know, or it never will, then yeah, you probably should really think about that, and maybe have a change of mindset or pursue a
Mm-hmm.
different path, right? So it could be just changing again your lifestyle, your habits, so your job actually can get you to financial independence.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, it's really two variables, right? It's really, and you think about the company, it sounds like very simplistic, but it's really revenue or expense. So either you make more or you spend less, right, to get you to financial independence. And so I think that yeah, so it's really the narrative you have to tell yourself. Where it's like, oh, but I have to spend this much. But no, but you don't have to spend that much, right? It's a narrative that or like even for a job, people are like, well, I know I need to increase the revenue, which is make more money, but they'll be like, but I can't get that job
Uh-huh.
that pays more, right? So again, it's a narrative you keep telling yourself, I can't do that to get more money. So that's why I come in. It's like changing that narrative for people from the can't to the can. So again, it's instead of like having a bunch of excuses, just take small actions, right? And like one thing I actually challenge one of my clients to do is like, if you buy, let's say 5 coffees a week, so like you spend X number of dollars per day on coffee.
Uh-huh.
So I challenge you, right? Buy one less this month, buy 4. How do you feel, right? Does it really change your life? And then take the savings from buying that one less coffee a week and put it into the index at the end of each month. How do
Uh-huh.
you feel, right? And then sometimes you'd be, oh, no, no impact. Okay, then I'll challenge you now. Instead of buying 4 coffees a week, buy 3 coffees, and then take that money saved and put that into the index. How does that feel? So I'm just saying this because these are baby steps
Yeah.
that people take, not like in
Mm-hmm.
one go. You'd be like, oh, cut this off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think so once you can visualize the path to financial independence, even though you're not there today, then your current job could seem a lot more appealing because now you feel like I'm not just here to put in the hours to pay the bills, but there's
Yeah.
actually a path to like an ultimate purpose, right? Like imagine like if you're in a park and you're just walking around and there's no map for you to ever exit the park. Like
Mm-hmm.
even the park could be really beautiful with flowers, with animals. You're probably like panicking, be like, oh my God, how do I ever get out of this place? It's like a maze. But
Yeah.
if you knew exactly, you had a map, like I'm here now, it's going to take me a while to get out, but I know the exit is there. These are the paths to take. You'll be like, okay, I'm going to enjoy my time here. I can really observe what's around me, enjoy nature and everything because I know how to get out. That's the destination, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I think about like career and financial independence and how we all kind of align that
Yeah.
together.
Uh-huh. So it's about designing a life where money is a tool rather than being the main goal. And I like one of the exercises that you mentioned, asking people what financial independence actually means to them, rather than, just assuming it's a universal number. Because at the end of the day, wealth is about having options and control over things and, doing something that you really like to do and that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Right? Well,
Oh, happiness.
uh-huh. Well, Anthony, that was another eye-opening conversation with you. Thank you so much for sharing why the wealthy don't believe in fire, the mindset, especially the mindset shifts that make financial freedom possible, and the importance of aligning money with purpose. So it's really a pleasure to host this conversation with you, Anthony. Thank you so much for being here.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
As always, it's a pleasure. For those who want to connect with Anthony and learn more about the Institute for Greatness, check out ifgreatness.com. And if today's conversation sparks something in you, don't just sit on that inspiration, take action. And before we go, a quick teaser. Next episode, we're talking about how to build a portfolio career that works for you. With Anthony, of course. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, this has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with X-Raised.